Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is the Voices of Healing podcast. I'm your host and shamanic Reiki healer, Tina Clark. And today's guest is Wendy Bjork. She is an author and a columnist, an inspirational speaker, and the founder of Hearts of Wellness. And she was able to overcome MS or manage it through holistic healing. And she's going to share her story with us today. Welcome to the show, Wendy.
Hi, Tina. Thank you for having me. I feel like the people I meet are just so divinely, we're led to each other. And maybe we've known each other before as well, but it's just, I love how we connected on the site for Podmatch, and I love how like our messages just go along the same lines of, healing is inside us. We just need to recognize it. And I didn't have any idea about any of this when I was first experiencing MS symptoms because I was only 15. I was trying to be a high school kid and in sports and just live my life. But we're always given challenges. We just need to know that the strength is inside us to come out on top of that or, deal with it even.
Yeah, I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like this lifetime for me is just reuniting with people that I already know. I don't know how many times I've had clients come to me or, students or even through this podcast or just networking. And we look at each other and we go, you seem really familiar, but I know we haven't met before.
Exactly. Yeah, I
And
love
then
that.
they'll mention keywords like, ISIS or Mary Magdalene or, something. And you're like, that's where we probably have something in common.
Yes.
So tell the audience a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. I originally went to college to be an insurance agent or an insurance professional or some type of insurance background, which is very, very, very masculine. So I was in that realm. I graduated from college, went to work right away, and this is when my symptoms really started to ramp up because, of course, stress always exasperates whatever we're dealing with. And I would go to neurologists or doctors, and they would tell me I was being dramatic or a girl, and that I was imagining all this stuff. But I knew I wasn't because there was weird things happening to me all the time. We live in the northern part of the U.S., and in the entryway, I'd be standing in a puddle of snow, and my dad would say, "You're standing in a puddle of snow." I'm like, "I have no idea. I feel like I have wool socks on all the time." And it was just my body, you know, doing things that I didn't recognize. I knew I didn't want to deal with. I didn't want to have a, awful illness when I was a teenager. Going back a bit, my grandmother had rheumatoid arthritis, and that's all I saw her do was sit in a chair all day. Because when she was diagnosed, women definitely were ignored, even more so than when I was ignored. And I just think going along, the doctors just kept waiting for something big to happen. And then that finally happened one day. I was 22, and it was like I was having a stroke or something. Like someone put their hand over my mouth and I couldn't speak. And that sent me to more neurologists and testing, and they still couldn't figure anything out because back then they used MRIs for other things besides diagnosing MS. And what I had spots on my brain, but they said normal people do. Like nothing was conclusive. And so I just ignored everything because I thought if they don't have an answer, then I'm just going to ignore it because I don't want to be like my grandmother. I don't want to be labeled as disabled. I don't want to be felt sorry for. So I'm just going to keep ramming along. And that's what I did. Just flare up after flare up. And I knew stress caused flare ups. And I knew that I should settle myself down. But on the other hand, I wanted to go out and have fun with my friends. I didn't want to tell anybody about this either because of being labeled and because of being felt to me like I was less than a person because I had something wrong with me. And it really took going along for like 20 years before I realized that I needed to do something differently. So that's what I want everybody to know is no matter where you are in your journey, it's never too late to start. Because like I said, it was 20 years at least of dealing with MS before I decided I was going to take my health back.
So, can you define what MS is and how prevalent it is right now?
Yeah, and it seems like more and more people are being diagnosed. MS is a illness of, or a condition, I should say, of the central nervous system, where your myelin is damaged, and that's what protects your nerves. So when your myelin is damaged, your brain is sending signals to different parts of your body, and all of a sudden there's nothing there to receive the signal. So something might not work, like your legs or your arms or your bladder or your speech or your vision. It's Some say that it's a snowflake disease because it affects everybody differently. So somebody that's had it exactly as long as I have might be doing completely differently than I am. And I've always believed that, and maybe I didn't approach it the right way, but I've always believed that our mindset has a lot to do with how we are physically. And I think just coming from this masculine world of that I worked in, that was really hard to keep up and to be who I was supposed to be. And that's what we're taught when we're young, is we have to keep up, we have to do all the things, check all the boxes. And I think now it's changing.
So, you got to the point where you realized, did they diagnose you, or how did you come to realize you had MS?
I think I probably saw 6 neurologists, and finally one of them did a spinal tap in the office, not in the hospital. And so I went back to work that day. And nobody believed me that I'd had a spinal tap because I was back at work. But that was what diagnosed me, was that spinal tap. And he didn't tell me to go home and lay down. He told me, whatever, just let me go. And I didn't know anything. And by like 7 o'clock that night, I couldn't stand up. I couldn't sit up. I'd like crawl around the house to get to the kitchen, the bathroom. It was awful. And it was because they took so much fluid that my body had to repair itself to put that back in place. And I think, knowing now what I know then, like doing a little research, but I advise people to stay off of Google because there is just too much there and it's overwhelming.
And the information on it is not necessarily accurate.
No, but MS has been around since I think the 1400s. There was a girl in Holland that was diagnosed with it way back then, and they still have no idea, or maybe they do have an idea of what the root of the problem is. I think I have a pretty broad experience and can say there's a lot to it, more to it than they probably admitted. It's about our mind, our body, and our spirit, because it's all correlated and we can't separate any of that.
Okay, so I know that you've used some holistic modalities. What were they, and how did they help you?
Um, well, and when I first started realizing that I needed to take my health back because my neurologist said I was going to end up in a wheelchair or just in bed, I just thought, all my friends have kids, they're running around crazy like me, but nobody's tripping and falling at the grocery store like I am. So what's really wrong? And I figured out that it's the inflammation. When we get stressed, when we are eating and drinking things that cause inflammation, when we're using products in our home that cause inflammation. First, we have to take a step back and see what we can start eliminating, and then adding as we go along. And I think starting in my laundry room was where I started, because I thought my laundry soap, my dryer sheets, everything had to match and smell like clean cotton. And then I realized those were all synthetic chemicals that someone created in a lab. There's nothing fresh, there's nothing that relates to cotton about it. And once I started getting rid of that stuff and the candles in my house and so many other things that were causing inflammation, then I started to feel better. And at the same time, I was also trying to infuse essential oils into my life, because my 8-year-old at the time had ear infection after ear infection. And every time somebody would look at him, he'd get a cold. And he'd miss so many days of school. That really caused me to go down that rabbit hole of oils and holistic healing. And it's just such a journey to go on. And it took me quite a while to actually reset my home, which is why now I help people collapse that timeline, because most people don't have 5, 6, 7 years to go through this process.
So, what do these synthetic chemicals do to aggravate MS?
If you think about the things we like when we wear our clothes every day, our body is absorbing whatever is inside those clothes. And when we lay on our sheets at night, our head is on that pillow. And if we've used synthetic fragrances of any kind in our home, especially the laundry products, we're just absorbing that all night and our body has no idea what to do with it. And a lot of times it'll see those molecules as an invader and it'll wrap it around a fat cell and then store it to protect our organs. And once I realized that, I mean, that was like a huge eye opener. And plus the chlorine that's in everything, because we've been told to bleach everything. But chlorine gas was what we used against our enemies in World War One. So why are we using that in our cleaning products? I mean, just all these different things that we think is normal because it's at Target, but it's not, and it's not safe. And even going into the personal care products, there's so many chemicals in there that aren't good for us. And just learning all about all of those and learning how to read our labels. And that's not even touching the food, because that's what I did last was the food, because I knew that was going to be the hardest to do. So I think just having an
Think,
open mind.
think about as women, we're putting on the lotions and putting on the makeup and the hair gels and then the shampoo and conditioners and our skin is like a sponge that just absorbs
Hmm.
everything. So yeah, I've over the years have, walked away from all that stuff. Now I just I use aloe as a moisturizer. And most days I'm not wearing makeup and I try to buy the mineral based makeup,
Hmm.
and it's all of those things. And,
Yeah.
some of us are more sensitive to this than others.
Hmm.
I think if you tend to be a healer or a sensitive person, I don't react well to pharmaceuticals.
Right. Yeah.
I noticed, I would get a prescription and I would take it, and if I wasn't getting better, I would stop taking it. I
Right.
would be like, "This is not working for me."
Hmm. Your body knows.
Mhm. So, over your healing journey and your process, where are you now, and is your MS still active, or how does that work?
Um, I'm not sure if anybody knows what it's like to wear a snowsuit. Um, but I've always lived up north, and when we go outside when we're kids, we have to wear this snowsuit. It's like a jacket and snow pants, and it's all attached to each other. So if you want to roll in the snow when you're a kid, you have to put this on. But what I relate to, once I went through this process of, it was like I took my snowsuit off. It was like this outer layer that I didn't even know had been on me all these years. Like I got rid of it because of all the work I did to, clean up what I was using in my home and clean up my food, clean up my thoughts, clean up the people that I was surrounding myself with. We don't acknowledge a lot of times that people's words stay with us and keep ruminating in our head. And that's another key important tool is also having a good circle of people that support you. And I think just having, these key pillars to focus on, it's not a short-term thing. It's not a quick fix. It's the rest of your life. If you want to stay, in the position that you're at, wherever you want to be, you have to keep following these guidelines for yourself because it's like your own protocol since we're all different.
Yeah, so you mentioned the chemicals and the diet. So what diet was best for treating your symptoms?
For
Or
me, it was getting rid of dairy, refined sugar, gluten, the wheat, and just seeing how that felt. And I still remember it was probably 10 years ago, and my siblings were making fun of me at Christmas. Like everybody had gotten up from the table, and my sister started singing about, like, I love dairy, I love wheat, I love sugar, and just going over and over like everybody was 5 years old again. And I thought, why do you care so much about what I'm not eating? Like, I'm trying to help myself feel better. And that was a big like light that you have to be, I guess, discerning on who you're sharing what you're doing, because not everybody is going to support you. Like for me, my doctors told me I was crazy, that nothing I was eating was affecting me, even though I was drinking soda every day. I love cookies, I love cake, but every time we're eating refined sugar, that's inflammatory. And when people are trying to, sugar is really hard to get off of. So just start cutting back, I tell people, because when you go cold turkey with anything, you get overwhelmed, you think it's not working, because we don't have any idea what's going on inside our body we don't have a window to see what's helping, what's not helping. So just it's back to listening to your body and taking the small steps to help yourself.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to pay attention to what you eat and how you feel after you eat it.
Hmm.
Like we need to make these connections, and I try to be mindful about foods that don't really sit well for me, and then I end up avoiding them.
Yes, yes, because we love Krispy Kreme donuts, and they look delicious. And then you have one, you think, I shouldn't have eaten that.
Yeah, they're not that good.
No, not anymore. They used to be.
So, say there's a listener that has MS or a loved one that has MS. What would be your advice to them on how to holistically heal?
I think the first step is to ask more questions at your doctor appointments, because they're quick to give us medicines. And I actually include that in my workbook that we had talked about earlier. The questions you should ask your doctor, like, what would you do if you were in my shoes? And ask for a copy of your summary from the visit, like your visit summary from the day. And then research the medicines they're giving you, because most of them have a lot of side effects. And you need to decide if it's worth it.
Yeah, so you mentioned the workbook. So, tell us more about that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to show up backwards or not. Yeah, but
That's
it's
it.
a 30 days to take charge of your MS symptoms. And inside of it, there's a quick start guide. Each week is broken down. So, week one, for example, is grounding and awareness. And when I was starting out on my healing journey, this all sounded like it was so far out there, I had no idea what to even do with it. But grounding is just going outside and sitting and listening to the birds, or just appreciating where we're at. And then each day has a different action step. That's easy, because this is what I was exactly looking for when I was starting out. And there was nothing out there that just broke it down. Yes, there was lots of things that I could do, but it was all expensive. So that's why I wanted to create something as a starting point for people. Just start doing one thing a day. And if you get behind, don't get mad at yourself. Don't get down on yourself. Just pick up where you left off. And then, along with the week by week, once you're done with that, then there's other self care. Because this all goes back to, we have to start loving ourselves again.
So, do you have any symptoms now?
I have a lot of damage because I've had it so long. So, my doctor, I still go to the neurologist. I don't always do what she tells me to do. But she always says if I could wave a magic wand, like, my bladder does not talk to my brain. And that makes it hard to go places and to travel. So that would be one thing. My balance, when I'm tired, I look like I've been probably drinking wine all day because I trip more. And then my speech, if I'm tired, I kind of mix up my words. So I think I still have, it's still maybe not active like it was when my kids were little, but I think I still have a lot of damage that's probably not going away until we can figure out how to replace the myelin.
You sound like me. I my doctor knows not to even prescribe me medication. Like she doesn't even offer because I'll ask her a million questions.
Yeah,
I
mine
have
wanted
a
me to start doing infusions, and I said, no, I've had friends that have died from those. 5 times I had to tell her no
what are
before she
the
back off.
infusions?
It's Ocrivus, it's called. One of them. There's like 5 or 6 of them. And there was a lady not far from me with MS, and we would chat on Facebook. All of a sudden, she had a brain tumor, and then she's gone. And I said, you can't tell me that wasn't from that. Well, she said the FDA is doing more research. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm
There's
not doing
so
it.
much gaslighting, and we're being told this is not connected. This has nothing
Hmm.
to do with this. I mean, let's all start using our common sense,
Yes,
and there's a lot of gaslighting that goes on.
for
That,
sure.
as a female too, lots of the things we go through are ignored or dismissed, even to this day. And
Yeah.
even the scientific studies, they don't even focus on women. They're doing the studies on men.
Hmm. Crazy. Yeah. And I know I've read, I'm in different Facebook groups with people with MS, and they go to the doctors, and the doctor says, well, here's your 3 medicines that you're going to have to pick from. And then if I go in there, I said, you don't have to pick anything. Just take your time. You've had this for a long time. It's just surfacing now. So just take your time, decide. Because
Have
they're
you ever?
making so much money on us.
Oh, yeah. It's all about the money. It's all about the money, people. Please trust me.
Hmm.
And we're in denial about it. And the more you deny it, you're not going to see the picture clearly. You're not going to really see what's going on,
Right.
which is why I started this podcast, because I wanted people to have natural, holistic solutions to health problems. And
Hmm.
there's so many of us like you that are doing this work and have this knowledge, and we need to share it.
Yes.
Hopefully, this is going to get to people who need to hear it, and you know that it will, because that's the way universe works. And maybe it'll spark some interest. Maybe it'll inspire you to look into holistic healing, or just do your own research and know that the major search engines are skewed,
Yes.
and
They're all,
they're repressing this information.
yes.
I mean,
Just,
have you ever heard of Barbara O'Neill?
I don't think so.
She's a nurse from Australia. She has a lot of videos out there, and it's all natural holistic healing. And if you go look at her Wikipedia page, I mean, I just laughed out loud. I mean, they might as well like said, "This woman is a witch, and she must be
Mm.
burned at the stake."
Oh my gosh.
Like, this is just a grandmother from Australia, but clearly she's a threat to
Ah,
somebody. So it's
yeah.
that kind of thing, go to these people's websites, listen to their interviews, find podcast interviews, because it's like the last bastion of free speech.
Right.
So, yeah. So share your website and your information, Wendy, on how people can contact you.
Sure. My website is hearts, plural, of wellness.com. And my email is support at heartsofwellness.com. And then if you want to check out my 30 days to take charge of your MS symptoms workbook, that's heartsofwellness.com/you, YOU, because it's time for everybody to love themselves, I think, to focus on themselves and know that self-care is not selfish. And it's not about going to a spa. It's all coming back to the simple choices and like steps we take each and every day.
Right. And also, I noticed you had a community too that's free to join on your website.
Yes, that is a MS focused community where I upload a lot of my syndicated column articles, which all come back to easy steps to live your best life.
Well, thank you so much, Wendy, for being on the show and sharing your story and wisdom with us.
Thank you for having me. It's been great being here and meeting up with you again.